Hi, I'm Ellie Parpis. I'm here at the One Club with One Show Judges. We're here to talk about some of the work and get a sense of what we might be seeing at the One Show this year. I'm here with Dave Bowman from TBWA Sydney, Susan Credle, Leo Burnett, Chicago, and David Baldwin from Baldwin. And tell me, guys, how has the judging been going? Have you seen anything that's excited you so far?
I think lots of stuff, certainly from my perspective. I think thus far it's been about 4 days of just feeling jealous, really, of kind of a lot of the stuff that's starting to come through, particularly now that we're through the preliminary phases. It seems to be a lot of great work in there, really.
Have you seen much work that's made you jealous?
You know, well, I think the category that's the strongest is the integrated. I think that people are really going back to thinking on these big sort of social activation ideas. And that's the place that I've been. This afternoon we watched a lot of that, and it was just really intriguing to see how people are critically thinking creatively to solve problems. I think that I don't know if everybody else is feeling this way, but some of the more traditional media, like print and television, feels a little lighter. So it's going to be interesting to see as we get into final rounds what rises to the top in those spaces. But the integrated big social thinking, there's a lot of cool stuff happening.
Do you think that's because of the emphasis and the shifts that are happening in the industry, and people are paying more attention and putting more emphasis in that larger idea? Why are we seeing the traditional mediums suffering a bit? Like you said, they're a bit thin.
Well, I know for me that because the new frontier is this kind of integrated social thinking and using emerging media to explore ideas, there are not as many rules. So you actually, by definition, are creating that world, so it feels fresher, versus I think in some of the more traditional mediums, we sort of know the rules, and you know, we've explored a lot of it, so it's just harder to crack a really big creative idea in those worlds. So I think that sometimes we are not as surprised by what's going on.
David, have you seen anything?
Yeah, I think what's happening is we have kids in a sandbox with more colors than ever, and that's what's happening, and we're all using the colors as much as possible. I was really actually blown away at the quality of the integrated category, that there were so many things that were actually quite good, to the point where I started using a filter myself to say what feels important, because so much of it was creative and so much of it was actually intriguing and funny and interesting, or zagged in a really big way, and so everything was pretty good in this category.
Well, how do you even define what a strong gold-winning integrated campaign should be?
Well, I think that we were just chatting a minute ago, and Dave was actually challenging me about something that we saw this Dave was, about a Yellow Page piece of creative that we saw. And you start asking, okay, it looks really interesting, but then you start pulling it apart and saying, all right, strategically, does it still hold together? Does it have a future? Is this finite, or is it an infinite idea? How big can it go? And I think you have to apply those to these things, because if it's a one-time event, then I think that it's a short sell for the brand. So I think David's right. You have to start building bigger criteria, because they're all interesting in and of themselves.
And sort of weirdly, I think simplicity really helps, but then it also kind of handicaps you sometimes too, because I think if it's too simple, as judges, I think we find ourselds kind of almost kind of going, I don't know, is that too easy, or and I think often the best ideas feel a little bit easy and effortless.
And I think that's important, to always say, would you participate in this? Because it looks really clever when you're sitting in a room and it's all laid out nice and it's very neat. But in the real world, and in the same way that I think we do with any piece of communication, would I notice it? Would I participate in it when I've got the rest of the world's clutter around me? And I think that's important.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed this year is that people are actually producing videos for their work that feel like finished actual pieces, versus there was a kind of there was a formatted video that over the last 5 years has been done over and over and over again, where you say the challenge, the objective, here was the idea, results were encouraging, and everybody had the same video, and the question was the work within that format good? And now people are actually producing shot videos where they went and casted the video, and I mean it's insane.
We were talking about this at dinner the other night, which is that first of all, I think some of the case studies you could run as pieces of communication.
yeah.
I mean, I'm almost thinking they're
Yeah.
better than the little pieces. And then the question is that good, or should we go back to something that's more structured so that we're not awarding the beauty of a case study, but
Right,
we're
like how
actually
much does that come to play?
awarding the creative that's in the case study? And that's getting a little difficult.
And
Can
in
you
many ways,
separate
that's
the
kind
quality
of
of
that's
the
kind of how
video?
consumers find it, right? I mean, they don't have the benefit of the unlicensed piece of music that does sets the mood perfectly, and then kind of clip from some film that's appropriate for that, but just never would really happen, and it builds that story.
Well, I saw a
So-
case study today, and it was clever and fun and interesting, and had a great tone of voice. But I remember seeing the pieces earlier this week, going, "Ooh, you don't want to sit through the pieces." So-
Yeah.